What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Eternals.
Man, what a movie. What a movie. Um and like such weird controversies, right?
What controversies? I don't know about them. I
Well,
know going
apparently,
in, everybody was like, "Man, this movie is it's looking bad. The critic reviews are not good."
yep.
Um,
Well, apparently the crit reviews apparently were terrible. Um but for some weird reason, the movie's way better than the critic reviews said. Like I don't know what the critics were watching that they didn't like versus what we saw.
right? Yeah, it was. I mean, I had no preconceived notions because I don't know who any of these people are. I've never read the comics, obviously. Um, and but it's kind of like going in with Guardians of the Galaxy. However, Guardians of the Galaxy had an awesome trailer to get me excited for it. Eternals did not.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
but I really, really enjoyed this movie. I liked it an awful lot, way more than I thought I would.
It might have been that it was weird. It's like the trailers and stuff for the movie came out, and it was kind of like it's like and like we didn't really understand how it's going to fit in the Marvel universe, and I think Marvel started trying to show us how it could fit, and they were trying to show us cool things from this movie to get us hyped, but it didn't really work. And then when reviews came in, it was like, oh my goodness, the Rotten Tomatoes is getting hammered, and all the reviewers are hating it. But then when the movie came out, the fans loved it. And like it was like this weird place where it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to deal with here. So I'm just going to try to come in with an open mind. And man, this is the future of the Marvel. If Marvel's going to keep doing these movies and doing these shows, this is the future. Like it needs, like we'll talk way more about this, but the Eternals movie looks better than any movie they've made ever. The storytelling elements are different. The acting's different. Everything about this movie is different, which is refreshing because I mean you can take Shang-Chi out of this, even though Shang-Chi is pretty close to what Marvel normally does, but it did very well. The Eternals is completely different, and I'm really curious to see if Marvel's going to lean into this and want to do more of this, or if
Hmm.
they're worried about like, are they going to listen to the critics or are they going to listen to the fans? I think they will listen to the fans.
Yeah, I mean the
Which
fans are the ones that pay the money, so I think they'll listen to
yeah,
them.
100%. And man, like, just like before we get really into it, the scene that showed me this movie was different is when the first time we see the celestial Irisham,
Hmm.
and it's like on the big screen, and you just see the scope of it. Like that was amazing, just absolutely amazing. The scope of this movie, whenever they show the Celestials,
Right.
was just out of this world. And
The only other time we've seen that scope in the MCU is during What If.
yep, and even then, What If was so comically bad in some ways that like it wasn't a serious thing. But when we saw these guys, it was just like wow, like this, like I felt like scared. It was so odd.
Yeah,
And like this, what's the director's name? I forget her name. She won an
Chloe
Academy
Zhao.
Award. She won an Oscar, so she was great. And just shout out to her for just doing something so original and different, and shout out to Marvel for letting her do it.
Yeah, apparently they had
Um,
already picked her by the time she
mhm.
got her Oscar, so that was like right around when she was announced as the
Yeah,
director, or right after.
there's also I think rumors that she's going to do some Star Wars stuff, so that's going to be amazing.
Interesting. Yeah,
Uh,
that could be really good.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's get into it. Man, there's so much with this movie that I think the best thing to do for now is for you just to start hitting me with some stuff, and we can go over it. Because like
Okay.
there's so much that I have, that I'm curious to see what questions you guys have, what you have. Not
Okay.
you guys, just you. So
Yeah.
what you got?
I'm gonna try to go in order, but I wasn't like sitting there taking notes in the movie theater, so some of this stuff's out of order. But anyway, and actually, my first two notes I realize are right near the end. Um, Unimind and Brainstorm, are those two things that come from the comics that you can tell us more about?
It's actually interesting. I just read the comic issue where they formed a Unimind, so it's actually a thing. In the comics, the Eternal. So let me back up a little bit. This is a good place for some history.
Yeah.
It's really complicated. This is the most complicated mythology in the Marvel comics, I would say. Like, it doesn't exactly make sense, but I'm going to try to lay it out in a way that makes a little sense. So, a long, long time ago, the Celestials came to Earth, but they also went to other places throughout the universe,
Hmm.
and they saw like primates and stuff like that, and the Celestials experimented with them. So the Celestials created the deviants first, and then left, and then the Celestials came back and saw that the deviants took over the world, and they created the Eternals to see if they could balance it out, and they did. But first, the Celestials killed all the deviants. It's a long story, but eventually, the Celestials pretty much used the planet as a petri dish for experimentation.
Hmm.
And the whole idea was, or is that at some point, the Celestials will come back and judge their experiment to see how it went. And so right, I think we're in the third. The Marvel universe is in the third realm of that experiment, where the Celestials are going to come back at some point and say, okay, this is how our experiment happened. Let's see how it goes. But there's a
In the
lot of
movie, they made it so the Eternals couldn't evolve while the Deviants could. Is that how it is
yes,
in the comics too?
no. In the comics, first of all, the deviants aren't these monsters. They look like, it's hard to explain. They look like kind of mutated humans. They're like humans that look like trolls or ogres, kind of. They look like they're people, kind of, but they can talk and they can reason, and they can build things, but they're just really
Uh,
ugly.
gotcha.
They're really ugly. So the best way to describe them is like, I can't even describe what they look like. It's so funny, but like, just imagine like the mole people or something like that, like a group of people who look really really strange, versus the Eternals who look like like Greek gods, right?
Hmm.
But and the deviants. So in the comic I read, which is the very first Eternals comic, the one of the Celestials is being born or waking up. He's in a mountain, and these scientists find them, and the eternal Ajax is like in this place, like in the comics Ajax is a man, and then like, so there's this whole weird thing about trying to wake up the celestial, but then the deviants realize what they're doing, and the deviants get mad and they try to start a war with Earth, to say, so the deviants attack New York to get humans' attention of aliens, so the humans can see the celestial or pay attention to the celestial and kill the celestial. So it's like a little fake. And the Eternals spend all their time trying to stop the deviants from hurting humans, and also trying to get the celestial people. It's really, really complicated. And I'm saying this because at first when I saw the movie, I was like, okay, what are they going to do with this complication? And they just took all the complicated history from Marvel Comics and said all this stuff is not true. It's all made up. And so they solved a really interesting problem, because the Marvel Comics history of Celestials, Eternals, and Deviants is super complicated. And what the movie did was, no, we're going to do something completely different and wash this away. And normally I would be very upset about this,
Hmm.
but because the Eternals and Celestial stuff is so complicated and so hard to understand, good on them. They made the right decision in this case.
It's not completely different though, right? It's heavily flavored by what you've told me about the Eternals comics.
Not really. Here's what, because so for example, the Celestials in the comics do not create life. They don't create worlds, and in the movie, it suggested that they do. In the comics, the Celestials aren't in. They don't use Earth and the planets to make new Celestials. In the
Okay,
movies,
yeah,
they do.
right.
In the movie, the main plot point is that the celestial needs an energy from intelligent life to grow, and then the celestial comes out of the planet and destroys it. That does not happen in the comics.
So
And
in the
this
comics, the Celestials don't create stars.
No, not at all.
Okay,
None of that.
okay,
None of that. Which and we will talk about this later. There's a lot of plot problems with the storyline that they say that this movie works on, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, so the Celestials do create the Eternals, but in the comics they use organic matter and they use DNA from humans. Like, the Eternals are basically elevated humans, but
hmm
in the movies they're basically robots. You know, that they're like some kind of weird organic machine type deals.
Right.
So that's completely different. In the comics, there's a place called Olympia that exists. That's not in the movie.
In the movie,
Um,
Olympia is a myth. It's
yeah, exactly.
it's what the Eternals were told they were from,
Mhm.
but it's not true.
Yes, and also in the comics, deviants are actually like life forms that reason, that think. Some of the deviants are actually good people. There's like there's deviant eternal hybrids. There's all kinds of stuff like that. And in the movie, they were like, deviants are just monsters, and then they killed them all off. So we probably won't see deviants again. Maybe in the next movie, I don't know. Um, but there's a lot in the movie. Basically just took the clean things that they wanted from the comics and then tossed out everything else,
Okay.
which I somewhat respect, but it worries me moving forward. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Um, Cena has a problem in this movie.
Hmm.
She keeps going into this like trance, and I guess remembering her previous lives. So like you said, the Eternals are all basically kind of like robots. They're kind of organic robots,
Hmm.
and so they all get their memories wiped every time they complete their
Yep.
mission, basically.
Yep.
But Thena's got this thing where she goes into a trance and remembers
The previous
very,
lives. Yeah.
very poorly remembers, but she remembers kind of their previous life. Um, they call it the Mad Weary, I think, in the movie.
Hmm.
Is that what you heard it as?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I heard. That's the Mad Weary.
Is that a thing that you can tell us some more about?
Is it in the comics? Not really. I think there's some hints here and there, but again, there's so much from the actual comics that they took that's kind of hard to figure out what they gleaned from the comics and what they didn't. But I think this is from the comics, and it's called Maud Weary. It's MAHDWY''RY.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it is from the
It
comics, but
seemed it seemed oddly specific to not be from the comics, so I'm glad I picked up
yeah.
on that. But that's not the way I would have written it out. Okay.
So from the comics, there was a storyline where the Eternals go mad and a lot of them commit suicide. But I didn't read that storyline, so I don't know it for sure. But I think that's definitely from the comics, but unfortunately, I don't know enough about it. And again, like I've told people in the previous podcast, the Eternal stuff is so deep dive Marvel that most people haven't read these storylines. So a lot of the stuff is like from the 60s and 70s. Some of it's from the 80s, and there's some more recent stuff, but they're not the mainstream stuff. And most hardcore comics fans wouldn't know a lot about the Eternals. So again, they had a pretty great box of toys to play with the Eternals, and they took the toys they wanted to come out. But this is one of those movies where I feel like and this is rare, okay? What we saw in the movie theater, I would say, is a better translation than what we got in the comics. I'm actually more excited about the Eternals setup they've made in the movies than I am from what we see in the comics. I know, and that's rare. I'm super surprised as well.
Right. Yeah, that's like the opposite of your what you've been saying in the last several podcasts we've done.
Yeah, and the reason is because the Eternals is so messy. It's so messy that they cleaned it up very well, I think, and made it something that we could actually appreciate and enjoy. Um, but there are some problems, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, keep going.
All right, my next one is a lot of the Eternals in the movie. Their names are kind of tied to
Hmm.
either I guess they're all historical mythical figures. I don't know that any of them are actually real people. But they're real figures on Earth. They're things that people know about. And maybe this will give you a chance to tell us what you know about some of these characters. But we've got Icarus, spelled differently from the way Kid Icarus. If you're, of a certain age, you know the video game Kid Icarus. But Icarus in the movie is a lot like Icarus, the mythical figure from, I guess it's Greek mythology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it
Flew too close to the sun.
flew too close to the sun. Yep. His wings, he had wings made of wax, I think.
Yeah.
And
Him and his father. I forget his father's name. Gosh. They were stuck in a maze. No, the father was in the mythology. The father was hired or told to build a maze to trap the Minotaur, and they were told they had to stay there to keep the maze going. And his father created the wings, and Icarus put on the wings. And his father said, "Don't fly too close to the sun, or you'll melt the wings. And if you fly too low, you'll fall into the ocean, and the sun becomes mesmerized by the sun by the sun. The sun becomes mesmerized by the sun. His wings fall and he dies. Yeah, that's classic.
right, yeah. Anything you want to tell us about Icarus from the comics?
Okay, so
And actually, is that name a character from the comics? Like, I don't even
all
know.
all the Eternals are represented from the comics, all of them.
Okay.
So yeah, and Icarus is the big cool one. He's the coolest one. He's strong. He has actually a lot of different powers in the comics that we don't get in the movie, but he's represented very well. He looks like Icarus, like Icarus. Ajax is a man in the comics, but they recast it. They made Selma Hayek
Yeah.
at Hayek. Yeah, Cersei's in there. Makari is also a man in the comics, but they've recasted him as a woman. We got Thena, which is in the comics. We got Sprite is in the comic. All those guys are in the comics. And so what the movie wanted to kind of do was like, okay, the Eternals existed for 7,000 years on Earth, and some of the historical mythologies that you know are based off of them. So of course, like Thena was translated by the mythology as Athena, right? Like
Right.
Icarus and all this other kind of stuff. So again, the movie kind of set this up. That Sprite told the stories of them, and they became integrated into um our stories and into our culture that way.
Right. And you just reminded me of what Sprite's power was. I couldn't remember at all what
Mm-hmm.
her power was, but yeah, she's really good at telling stories. Even
Illusions.
yeah, illusions and telling stories. She's even better than C-3PO.
Yeah, that was a three. You know what? That was a C-3PO scene from Return of the Jedi. That was so. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. But that's actually that is that they stole that straight from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
You gotta steal from what works. That's fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Take it, make it your own.
So yeah, so if you look at the Eternal cast from the movies, they all came from the comics very well, I think. And so I mean, some of the powers are a little different, but overall, it all works out.
Yeah, so we've got Makari, who is really fast and apparently inspired the mythos of Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
So Makari, Mercury. We've got Gilgamesh, who
Yep.
I didn't remember who Gilgamesh is from mythology, but what I had a tab up here. Let me see if I can.
He's
find
one of the he's one of the oldest mythologies, man. He fights that one thing. I forget what it's called. The Grendel. He fights Grendel.
I don't even know what you're talking about, man.
The story of Gilgamesh. No, is that no? Wait, no, that's not Gilgamesh. That's another one.
I don't know. You might be right.
Gilgamesh is from one of the earliest mythologies. He's kind of connected to the flood myth. I forget the
Yeah,
details
he's
of it. I've
apparently
read it.
tied to like early Babylonian.
Yeah, he's super old. I forget the story. He's one of the oldest recorded myths that we have. He's older than any of it, but I forget the details of him.
Yeah, he was a hero in ancient Mesopotamian mythology and the protagonist of the Epic of Gilgamesh, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I got that wrong. When I was talking about Grendel, that's a totally different one. My apologies. Somebody's gonna get mad about this.
Written
But
during
yeah.
the late second millennium. So yeah, that's old.
So yeah, so all these people, you put all these Eternals together, and like the movie wants you to think that all of them were the mythological heroes of old, like, and that's where we get those from. Which I thought they did a good job with that. I can't find if Gilgamesh is a Eternal from the comics though. I'm going to have to look deeper. I don't see him on a list.
Okay.
There's a lot of Eternals though, but I don't see him. I'm going to look for that.
There's Druid, whose
He's
name is.
yeah, he's actually a villain in the comics.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Name clearly relates to druids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's able to control people's minds. So that's fitting. And then the celestial that's growing inside of Earth is named Tiamat.
Yep.
Or is it Tiamat? Yeah,
Yeah. Tiamat.
Tiamat, which reminded me of Tiamat, which is I guess a Babylonian goddess of the sea. And apparently there's like various dragons that are named after Tiamat. So I don't know.
Is he from the comics? Yes, he is.
Tiamat is,
Yes.
and he's a celestial.
Yes.
Is it
And
surprising that it feels weird that celestials have names to me?
why?
I don't know. I don't know. It just feels weird. I didn't expect any of them to have names. I guess for whatever reason.
They have names as far as what we've given them, but I think if they are communicating with each other, I don't think they would say they have a name.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because they're such ancient creatures. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm looking at Tiamat right now, and I can't find if he's from the comics, but I don't know if he's a celestial in the comics. They might have taken that name and used it from the movie.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of different versions of Tiamat. Hang on. Yeah, I don't know if he's connected to a storyline with the Celestials, but I don't know if he was the Celestial in the comics. But then again, they're pretty much taking what they want from the comics here and just doing what they want with it, which I'm okay with right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it worked pretty well for this movie.
For now, we got a couple things going on. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Okay. All right. So I think you've already answered this question, but in this movie, Celestials, when we were watching the trailer, I was like, "What is the emergence they're talking about?" And you're like, "I have no idea." I don't know if you were saving a spoiler or if you really had no idea.
I knew what it was.
You did know what it was?
Yeah, I lied.
Okay, good. That's good. I didn't want to be spoiled, so
I would have totally spoiled it for you. So I'm glad I didn't.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the emergence in the movie is the Celestials somehow plant seeds in planets to grow new Celestials. The Celestials need life force from like lots and lots of
People.
high order, highly evolved organisms.
Yeah, and so in the movie, the Celestials told the Eternals that, hey, you guys need to protect humanity. But in actuality, the Eternals were there to protect humanity, but also to evolve humanity, give them tools, give them resources, and stuff like that. And so the smarter humans became, the more powerful the Celestial and Earth became.
And the more they could, the higher the population could grow.
Exactly.
They needed more fuel for that celestial birth.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the thing.
In the movie, that's not in the comics at all.
Oh. Well, so how did you know what the emergence was?
In the comic that I read, it was a big deal about a celestial returning to Earth. And there was like some of the Eternals were trying to stop that from happening, and some of them wanted it to happen. It was actually a big kind of debate amongst the Eternals about the returning of a celestial. And so when I saw that the word emergence was used, I realized they were probably like the main event of the movie was going to involve a celestial, and that could either be that the Celestials were going to return to judge Earth, or that based on the comic I read, like in the comic, one of the Celestials actually came out of a mountain. So I kind of figured out, okay, that's probably what they're going to do. And it's a movie, so you can kind of tie some things together here and there, and then realize what the main threat is. I didn't know it was going to be to that extent of it will destroy the planet. But yeah, I kind of knew. I kind of pretty much knew what it was.
Okay. So the Celestials had a big setback when Thanos snapped, and
yeah, we're not ready to talk about that just yet, I don't think. But one of the plot points in the movie is when the snap happened, when Thanos killed off half the life of all the universe.
Right.
Like the Celestials that were kind of breeding or like what's it called, brooding, gestating, I think is a good word for it.
There you go.
It didn't have as much life, so it had to kind of like just stop. You know, it just kind of stopped, and then when the people came back, it started back up again. So
Right.
that's a big plot point. There's a lot of theories going on with that we'll save for the second half or the next when we get to this part soon. There's a lot of plot holes and issues with the movie's plot that needs to be addressed. We're not there yet.
Okay, I'm just going to say this so we can talk about it later then.
Yeah.
I think that Thanos' snap was such a big problem for the Celestials because this is all of their babies that are growing in all these planets they have throughout the universe. All of them had their fuel reduced by half.
Yeah.
So they must have stepped in and helped defeat Thanos somehow.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. All right. What do you think made Ajax? So Ajax is the leader of the Eternals on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only one that gets to talk to Eros, which is their celestial that they are working for, basically.
Yep.
Why do you think she shared her plan with Icarus?
Okay,
I guess not her plan, but the plan, like the Celestials' plan.
We're at plot hole points. So now let's just get there. Let's just do it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with that one. We don't know. There is no reason why Ajax would tell Icarus because there's no real work to do. Like,
right.
Okay, so
you don't have to do anything different.
Exactly.
You have to change your tactics. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea there was a scene where Druid leaves, he gets mad and leaves. Gilgamesh and Athena go off on their own because Athena's having issues with her brain, and the rest of the Eternals go about their separate ways. All the deviants have been killed, so they're good to go. No more worries. All they have to do is just wait for the Celestial to call them back. If that was true, which I'm going to go assume it is, why would Ajax tell Icarus? We absolutely do not know. I don't know. Maybe she needed to tell someone. I'm kind of feeling like there might have been a romantic thing between them, but that never kind of panned out. Maybe Ajax needed help evolving humanity even more that we don't know about. Maybe Icarus found out. We don't know. That's plot hole number one. That's a big one because there needs to be a reason, and there's no reason. Like we don't know why she told us. We don't know. And the idea is, from a story standpoint, we need Icarus to kill Ajax to get the story going because Icarus is betraying everybody, and that's a big plot of the story.
Right.
And we do need to give a spoiler warning. Maybe we should put this in the show notes or something. Spoiler alert! Like we never do spoiler alerts.
Well, that's the entire podcast is a spoiler.
I guess that's true. Maybe we should call sideshow spoilers. Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah. I feel bad for people like, oh, I want to listen to this but haven't seen the movie. I go, okay, I spoiled it. So again, that's plot hole number one. We don't know. Big plot hole. I can't give you a reasoning that makes any sense. That's number one.
My best reasoning is like Kingo kind of looks up to Icarus as a leader of the Eternals, even though Ajax is the leader. So maybe it doesn't make sense at all.
Nope.
But that's the closest thing I can think of for a reason.
Nope. Okay. Plot hole. There's another plot hole. Plot hole number two. Okay, so the Celestials create the Eternals, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
And then send them to Earth to help the population grow. Now, if that's true, which is true, okay, I don't understand completely why we have an Eternal that's a child that can't grow up, why we have an Eternal that is deaf. That's pretty much it. Like those two. Like I don't know why.
So Sprite isn't a little human in the comics?
No, Sprite's kind of like a little like trickster kind of character. He looks kind of funny. It's like
So is he just slight, and that's why he's called Sprite? Like he's not short or young.
He's short of stature and he's young, but in the comics, there's never a hint that it's a problem. Like it's not like he can't age. Makes sense. But like,
well, I mean, they're all like thousands of years old, so he's not
Yeah,
aging. He's not going
no,
to
but
age.
I think he can mature, right? From what the comic I read, he was pretty much of level. He could grow up, right, to a point. But this sprite in the movie was created as a child and was supposed to stay a child.
I mean, it seems like if there's a child sprite in the comics, he's going to stay a child. He's not
Okay,
grown up. He's never grown up.
let's forget about the comics. Let's focus on the movie. In the movie, the Celestials create a child that can't grow up.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Why do that?
I don't know.
And why create
What's
a
her
person who's
what's
deaf?
her power is
Illusions. They can make illusions. Yeah.
mm,
And also, like this is a side note, why do you need an Eternal that can create illusions? Why do you need an Eternal that can control human minds? Why do you need an Eternal that can well, I understand why Faustos was created to help human beings evolve. But some of those Eternals just weren't needed. Like I don't know why. And like I don't from a the like what's her name? I forget her name. Makari, I think her name is. Like she's a great character, and I love the fact that she's deaf. And there because of the movie, there was a spike in people trying to learn more about American Sign Language, which I think is awesome, right? Great.
mm.
But from a practical standpoint, I'm a celestial, I'm a space god. I need to create these things. Why create a deaf one? I
All
don't.
right, here's why.
Okay.
Makari goes so fast. She breaks the sound barrier. And if she could hear, she would go deaf.
No, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense, man. Come on.
She's running. She's like not in like
No.
she's not wearing a spacesuit. She's not in an
No.
aircraft. If she runs fast enough to break the sound barrier, she's going to make herself go deaf.
No.
Come on,
It doesn't-
that's a
it-
good
No, it doesn't.
reason
it's
for
not.
this.
It doesn't make any sense. Like from a Marvel Studios, we need to make a movie that helps us with inclusivity. I'm completely 100% fine with that. That's great. I think a deaf superhero is awesome. I really do. I think it worked really well. And
Yeah.
matter of fact, it was like it was one of the cool aspects of the movie. From a story writing standpoint, I'm sitting in a room with 4 or 5 other writers being like, why, how do we explain this? And then one person, I guarantee, said, we don't explain it. Just leave it alone. Move on to the next thing. And like, it doesn't make, like, okay, so, okay, here's the deal.
I think I came up with a great reason, and you're not giving me credit for it, man.
I'm not going to give you credit. Because, like, okay, so at the beginning of the movie, the story was, the myth was that these Eternals are from the planet Olympia.
Right.
Which means they were born, and that makes sense that someone could be born deaf, right?
Yeah.
But if the real story is that the Eternals created them in a machine factory, then what? I don't. That's plot.
She wasn't born deaf. She became deaf the first time she broke the sound barrier.
Okay, if that's okay, I'm gonna let you have that one just so you can have it. But
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just saying that you can have it, even though I don't really believe it. But you can have it. Okay.
All right, the listeners are going, yes, Mike, that's it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Next plot hole is a pretty thick one. It's not a hole. It's just a storytelling problem that Marvel has to deal with now. The Celestials exist, right? And they have seeded planets in order to birth more Celestials. And at some point, the Celestial bursts out of the planet and destroys the planet, but is born. That is very, very close to the idea of Galactus. Galactus is not a Celestial. He is a different kind of being. And Galactus feeds on planets, feeds on certain planets like Earth. He goes to the planets. He judges the planet and decides, okay, this is a good planet for me to eat. He destroys and eats it, and then he moves on. That's those two things. Like Marvel created a problem for themselves because at some point we all assumed that Galactus would show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We all assumed it was probably going to be tied to the Fantastic Four movies. I don't know how they bring Galactus in if they've already brought in the Celestials. That's too similar. Like we've already told that story, kind of. So it's not good. It's not good. I'm not sure how they're going to fix it either. And I don't know. Like this is actually a couple threads in Reddit about it. And I posted something in Reddit about it, and there were some arguments about it, and some people were like, well, he'll just show up. But if I'm Marvel and I need to do something new and original every movie, bringing Galactus in as a threat to the planet is not going to work as well because the Celestials have already done that. So I don't know what they're going to do with this.
I don't really know anything about Galactus at all, so I don't have much to say on that. But you know that whole idea that you're saying is too similar to Galactus?
Yeah.
You know what else it's very similar to?
What?
It's very similar to the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Mm-hmm.
Where you've got Ego, the living planet, who is planting seeds on planets throughout the universe. And those seeds are going to destroy the planet and give Ego even more power.
That actually makes sense because in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, he calls himself a Celestial. He's a Celestial without a body.
Yeah.
So it actually makes sense.
Does it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is he a rogue Celestial? He's planting a different kind of seed on planets?
He's definitely a rogue Celestial. He's doing a different kind of game than Ashram is. Yeah, 100%. I'm curious to see if they're going to clean that up at some point. And this is the thing. Like, Marvel might be trying to use the Celestials and the Eternals as a way to explain some of the stuff they've been doing throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe as far as like superheroes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to the mid credit and post credit scenes, I'll explain why that is. Okay. But that's it, really. Those are the biggest plot holes. But I do want to say this: when I was watching the Eternals, the action scenes I thought were super cool. I thought all the acting was great. My favorite fight scene was with Makari and Icarus. Remember when when she was going super speed and punching them and stuff?
That was awesome. I loved it.
That was so awesome. I loved that fight scene. Like, so many movies and TV shows don't do super speed well, but they nailed it in this one. Like, that's exactly the energy that's exactly what I want to see when I see a speedster do anything. Like, every time she was running super fast, I was super excited. So good.
I saw somebody on the internet said that what they loved about Makari in this movie is in most superhero movies or shows, when you have a speedster, there's always a slow-mo scene.
Yep.
There was none of that in this movie.
No.
Every time Makari's running, she's fast.
Super speed.
Everything else is normal speed.
Yeah, and like, it makes you feel how fast she is. You know, like, it's instead of like, I'm going slow, but this is to show that how fast I am. No, it's like, I'm going to make her fast to show how fast she is, which makes sense. Like it makes complete and utter sense. It's like, I love, and we haven't even got to the part with Cersei yet. Like, I love Cersei's storyline. I thought she was fantastic. And she very much is representative of who she is in the comics. Her powers are just the same. I'm super excited about Cersei being a big component of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm so excited about that, 100%.
I am drawing a blank on what Cersei's power is right now.
She can transmutate things, so when she touches something, she can change something else.
Yeah, she explains it. She's like, I can change a rock into wood, and I can change a rock into water.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's like, okay, your powers seem kind of lame.
right.
But I mean, it's so, like, everything about this movie. There's problems thematically with it sometimes, and there's problems like what's like most times we want to see like a major battle, and we do get a major battle, but like ultimately at the end, Cersei doesn't have any problems transmuting the Celestial into ice, right? She just does it when and like, it feels a little easy.
Well, she's got the Unimind going on.
Yeah,
she's
that's
using
true.
The power of all the Eternals,
exactly. But it's like,
including I think someone said including the Tiamat himself.
Yeah, she
taps into his power too.
Yeah, at the plot point of the story is that the reason why Celestials were able to survive whenever the emergence happened is because Tiamat would, like, the Unimind would form with all of them, and they would all survive. So it's kind of a thing. But when you look at, and this is something I want to say, and this is a big one. I have never liked Angelina Jolie. I don't like any of her movies. I don't like any of her acting until this movie.
Not even Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Nope. until this movie. I do not know why, Mike. I don't know why, but for some
Okay.
reason, Angelina Jolie nailed this for me, and I love her in this movie. I don't know why. I really don't. But she like is so good in this movie. She just really is. Like every time she says a line or every time she makes a motion, it feels like Angelina Jolie knows exactly what this Thena character is supposed to do. It feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
Usually Angelina Jolie seems a little stuffy or seems a little like too good for the role she's playing or something like that. And this one felt like, yeah, she is those things because Thena is supposed to be that way too.
Yeah.
But then we see some vulnerability,
Right.
and it just work. It just works. And when Gilgamesh is killed, that I felt that in my soul. It's just
Yeah.
so
No.
much.
No kidding, man. I told you going into this movie that he was my reason for seeing the movie because I
Yeah.
loved Don Lee. Is how he's credited in Eternals. Loved him in Train to Busan.
Hmm.
So I was really sad when he died.
Yeah, this is so good.
I hope they bring him back.
They won't. He's dead.
Don't they have like copies of themselves
Yeah,
somewhere?
that's true. They might bring him back. That's true. They could. Yeah. We can get to the end. So at the end of the movie,
Wait. Before you get to the end, I've got another thing. I guess if I was being hypercritical, I would say it's a plot hole. Maybe it's just bad writing. I don't know. But they're all kind of deciding what they're supposed to do. And Cersei, she's the leader. Ajax made her the leader of the Eternals after she died. Cersei wants to prevent the emergence from happening.
Yeah.
And Icarus says, Kingo says to Icarus, "Hey, what do you think?" Because Kingo looks up to Icarus as a leader of the Eternals, even though he isn't technically. And Icarus says, "She's the leader. It's her choice. Kind of do what she wants to do." And he walks off. Why would he do that if he's trying to keep the emergence from or keep the emergence happening? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think that if you remember that scene where like Icarus at the very end was supposed to kill her but decides not to.
Yeah.
I think that there was a part of Icarus who didn't want to do any of this. Like he didn't want to. He wanted to. Like he kind of felt like maybe I can stall them. Maybe I can figure out a way to like keep this from happening without having to hurt them. But then at some point he decided, no, I have to do this. So I think he was conflicted the whole time. That's my only explanation about that. I thought the Icarus Cersei love interest stuff worked well. I was kind of curious to see. I don't fall victim to this stuff often, but I was kind of curious to see who Cersei would pick, either him or Dane at the end. But we didn't get a chance for you to see that. So yeah, it's a plot hole, but but the movie's full of plot holes. So I mean, that's one of the smallest ones.
That's that, and then why Ajax shared the plan with Icarus were
We
the
don't know.
only
We have
two.
no idea.
Those are the only two things that I like saw as issues with the story.
And without even with all these plot holes and problems and stuff,
you say
the
all
movie
these
still
plot
works.
holes. Can you like name them off again? Because the only one I've got from you is the whole Galactus thing. I think.
Okay, so why is Makari deaf? Why is Sprite a young kid?
I explained the Makari thing. Okay.
No, okay, yeah. You didn't explain a Sprite thing. Why create an immortal kid that looks like a child forever?
Hey, here's all I got to say on that one. If you're gonna name somebody Sprite, it's got to be like a kid or like really small guy.
Okay, I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the end. At the very end, we have all these. We have Cersei.
So a deaf character is a plot hole in your mind.
A deaf character created by a super space god is a plot hole. Why would a space god create a deaf person? And I know it seems weird, but it's just true. It's like if you can create a robot, why make the robot deaf? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. I can understand like an all-loving God creating a deaf person. That happens all the time, right? If you it's like, but I can't believe a robot celestial dude would say, "I need this person to be deaf." It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not saying that deaf people can't exist. That's the worst thing you can possibly say. What I am saying is, it doesn't make any sense for a space god to make a deaf person. It just doesn't, or a young person. It does. Or a fat person.
Why-
Why is Fastos fat? It's making sense.
He didn't want. He didn't sign that part of the contract. We talked about this. He didn't want to do the fitness routine.
Yeah, I understand. But okay, I just don't. Maybe the Celestials have a deeper thinking about creation than I do, but it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, they also created like a multiracial.
Yeah, but from a movie standpoint, having these characters, there was like the Eternals got a lot of pushback from these stupid. I don't want to call them white supremacists. I don't know what they are, but it's the typical group of people who give beef to movies like this. Like they gave beef to Captain Marvel. They gave beef to Sam Wilson when he became Captain America. I don't want to call them racist, but they've got some issues. And Eternals got the same kind of
racist.
We'll just call them race. We'll just call them bigots. That's a good way.
Yeah,
to look
there
at
we
it.
go. Yeah.
You know, the team bigot went after Eternals for being multicultural, and they were wrong. Like the multiculturalism of the movie worked very well. I thought all the characters had different dynamics. They all seemed different. They all seemed interesting. They all worked together and meld together extremely well. It just works. But
I was almost gonna say, it's like every member of the Eternals is a different race, but hey, Team Bigot, you guys still won. They're majority white.
Wait, are they?
Yeah, there's Icarus, there's Athena, there's Druid, and Sprite.
Oh, you're right.
There's 4 of them.
You're right. That's weird.
Overwhelming majority white.
That's so strange. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Well, Team Bigot, you should be. But no, hey, but there's too many women, Mike. Too many women.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
To be a bigot, you have to hate women and minorities.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. Yeah. The men are the minority on the Eternals.
Yeah. Anyway, who cares about Team Bigot? Who cares? We want to talk about Team Bigot more next week with Captain Marvel. There's a lot to go with that. But anyway, at the very end of the movie, Cersei gets kidnapped. So let's see, Thena, Druid, Makari go to space to try to connect to other Eternals throughout space to stop the emergence from happening and tell them the truth. Because apparently there's other planets with other Eternals doing the same thing they did. Icarus, let me ask you a question. Does Icarus kill himself?
He does.
All right, so Icarus is dead.
In a sad, what do you call it? He's basically recreating his myth.
Yeah.
So his myth is that Icarus flew too close to the sun and his wax wings melted and he fell to his death.
Yeah.
In this movie, Icarus flies directly into the sun.
Yeah, so it's a little bit on the nose, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And then we have Cersei. What's the other guy's name? I forget his name. The guy with he shoots lasers from his hands. Pew pew pew.
Oh, that's Kingo. How can you forget Kingo?
Cersei, Kingo, and Faustus are on Earth. Faustus, they're on Earth, and Sprite's a human. Okay.
Yeah. Cersei used the last bit of Unimind power she had.
Yeah.
To transmute Sprite into a human.
So that's cool. And okay, so all that happens, but then Ostrom comes. In one of the coolest scenes in Marvel Cinematic history, Ostrom shows up, and I don't know about you, but when he shows up and he's like takes over the entire sky, that was just awesome. Right. When I think of a Celestial, I think of that. Then he takes the remaining Eternals, and then he goes off somewhere with them. Mm-hmm. And an idea he says something interesting. He says he's going to use the memories of the Eternals to judge humanity because they decided that the humans were more important than Celestial, and so now Ostrom is going to judge humanity based.
That sounds like a throwback to what you told me the plot of the comics.
It is 100%. That's nice. That's a good throwback. Excellent. So that's the movie. Then we have 2 post-credit scenes. We have our first mid-credit scene. Mike, can you tell me what happens in the mid-credit scene?
I can. The Eternals, they're flying their ship, which is called the Domo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that ship from the comics?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So they're flying their ship away. They're going to go locate other Eternals to kind of like sync up. But they can't find Cersei. They don't know where Cersei went. And then we get this big announcement. Like there's this like portal that opens up inside of the Domo.
Yeah.
and we hear this bombacious announcement from a troll who is clearly voiced by what's his name?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
No, like as soon as like the first 2 words he said, I knew exactly who it was.
I have no idea who is it.
Patton Oswalt, the comedian.
Who's that?
Patton Oswalt, the comedian.
Oh, the little short dude.
Yeah, he did the voice of Ratatouille.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Like as soon as I heard like 2 words out of his mouth, I knew exactly who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, so Patton Oswalt the troll announces, is it Starfox or Skyfox?
Starfox.
Starfox. So Starfox comes onto the ship. And who is Starfox, Jay?
Okay, so
I only know the Nintendo Fox character.
Yeah. So when Pep the Troll shows up, and Pep the Troll is from the comics, he's connected to Adam Warlock, which is a big deal. When Pep the Troll shows up, he announces that Starfox is the brother of Thanos. Here's where things get very interesting. Technically, Mike, Thanos is an Eternal.
We've never heard that before.
I know, because nobody ever said anything about it. But on the planet Titan, the same experiments that were created on Earth were created on Titan, and they were all created just like before. I don't know how the movie's going to explain this, but because it's a little different with their theories. But Thanos is actually a deviant Eternal hybrid. So I don't know how they're going to explain that. But Starfox is, in the comics, he is Thanos' brother.
So when you were explaining how the deviants show up in the comics, that made me think of kind of like Thanos. He looks kind of like a human, but he's messed up looking.
Yep, that's how, So in the comics, the Eternals existed on Titan, and they had superpowers, and Thanos was born. It's like he had some kind of weird disease that gave him like a like he was like I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes the Eternal can be born and have a kind of like disease, like a deviant disease. I'm not sure 100%, but anyway, that's how Thanos was born. And Starfox is his brother in the comics, 100%.
Like legitimate same parents, or
same parents, same everything. In fact, during the Infinity Gauntlet comic storyline, Starfox actually goes after his brother Thanos, and Thanos like traps him and like says, "Hey, you never loved me, you never helped me, you're always blah blah blah." So and even going back further, Starfox and Adam Warlock and Captain Marvel actually helped kill Thanos the first time. So here's why this is a big deal. This is some deep dive comic stuff. And if Marvel is going to connect Thanos to the Celestials, to the Eternals, stuff like that, there's a whole new box of worms that they're opening as far as storytelling wise. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought they would have brought Starfox. Oh my gosh. Starfox into the movies because it's so weird. And I never would have thought they would have called him Thanos' brother because it's so much to explain. And they have to explain why was it. They have to explain the connections between Thanos, the Celestials, and everything else because Marvel, with the Celestials, they've created a whole different story, right? That's not tied to the comics. So they're freewheeling it right now. So I don't know what they're going to do.
They must have a really good idea to bring Thanos' brother back around.
We'll see.
And you know what? I think this is where the Celestials intervened to help defeat Thanos. Because he was causing too much of a problem with their babies.
Okay, that's something there. But let's just put that on the table for now. Because there's not a lot. Because this is not based on any comic stuff. So this is all theory. But there could be something involved, like with the Celestials, the Infinity Gems, Thanos, what happened at the end game. Marvel, the MCU wants us to think this kind of stuff, and the end of Eternals definitely did it. So I don't know. It's interesting. Mike, there's another great thing. Did you watch the very end?
Real quick before we end on Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Which came first? Nintendo Star Fox or Marvel Star Fox?
Marvel Starfox. He's been around since 65, 66.
Okay. Well, if you do a search for Starfox on the internet, Marvel Starfox does not show up. It's only
Of course
Nintendo
not.
Starfox. Yeah.
His real name is Eros. Eros.
Where's Starfox come from?
It's his nickname. It's his cool space name.
Okay. All right. Okay.
No, so okay,
I heard them say Starfox. I'm like, the Nintendo character?
okay, so Mike, look for more answers to all this stuff in 2 movies coming up: Thor, Love and Thunder, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, definitely Guardians of the Galaxy.
Whatever they're thinking of doing, those 2 movies are going to be the next hit for it.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, and now, well, don't hold me to it. I don't know, but
I'm not going to hold you to it.
Okay, hold me to it.
Yeah,
and now
we'll
we get the end credit scene. What happens at the end credit scene?
All right, yeah, the end credit scene. So we've got what's his name? Dane, the human.
The good looking guy from Game of Thrones.
Now wait, which one's better looking? Dane Whitman or Icarus?
Dane Whitman. What's his real name?
Kit Harington.
Yeah, Kit Harington looks way better
than Icarus.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I thought you had it the other way around last time we talked about it.
No.
Okay. I can't wait until we do that episode, the bonus episode, where you rate how handsome the men in the MCU are.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward.
Are we doing that?
We're gonna do that sometime.
Okay, we got a lot. Yeah, we got. I will say this.
I mean, we should say you have a wife, but you're very good at apparently evaluating the handsomeness of the men in the MCU.
That's true. I am good at that. And I will say too, before we move on, it's like when we started this, I didn't think that we could do this for 6 months. And just judging from what we're seeing now, and we got more stuff to talk about later.
Right.
We'll be doing this for the conceivable future.
I just have to figure out how to get this set up in my assisted living home.
We'll be doing this we could theoretically do this for 20 years. But anyway,
right.
The end credit scene, Mike, what happens?
All right. So Dane Whitman, he's back in the museum. So Dane and Cersei, they met each other working in a museum. That's how they fell in love. But he's back in his office in the museum, and there's a big wooden case that he opens up. And inside of the wooden case is a sword. And I guess it's in Latin. There's a carving in the case. Mm-hmm. And it translates to "death is my reward." It's carved into the case. And Dane gets ready to pick up the sword, and someone says, "Are you sure you're ready?" And that's it. I thought that voice saying, "Are you sure you're ready?" was Nick Fury. But everybody in my family told me I was completely wrong.
Who did your family say it was?
They didn't know, but they said that's definitely not Nick Fury.
Do you know who it is?
I've heard people on the internet say who they think it is. Who do you think it is?
Well, it's been confirmed that it's Blade.
Okay, yeah, that's what the internet was saying.
That's confirmed.
So it's damn. What's his name?
I don't know. I can't pronounce it either.
Okay, all right. So it's Blade.
Yeah, but Mashallah Ali.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's super exciting. So first we get the Black Knight, which no one's ever heard about. Just real quick, the Blade's cursed. If he picks up the blade, it gives him superpowers, but also make him more and more corrupt and evil. So that's a problem.
He said his family, so he was getting ready to tell Cersei that he has a secret as well.
Yeah, his
family has a strange history.
It's pretty dark. It's the blade's not good stuff. So if he picks up this blade, he's going to connect himself to the dark history of his family, and it just judged from the comics, it's pretty dark. It's bad as far as killing people and being evil. So if he picks up that blade, he will get powers, but also he'll have to deal with the repercussions for that. But and Blade,
who does he become when he picks up that sword?
The Black Knight.
Black Knight. Okay.
Yeah.
You think he's going to do it? Is he going to do it?
Yeah, he's going to do it. But here's the deal: if Blade's talking to him, that means the Blade movie or show, whatever, is coming up soon, and Black Knight will be in it soon. Which means that so there's a term here that you might need to know. It's called the Midnight Suns. and it's a catch-all for all the darker, more violent Marvel characters like Blade, Morbius, Ghost Rider, those kind of characters.
I was going to ask
So
if Morbius was in that career.
yeah, so and like Morbius, the movie's coming up at some point and stuff like that, and so yeah, you should. People should be prepared for an announcement of either a new Blade movie, which is probably going to come out, or the Midnight Suns, which is going to be like a whole grouping. And I can see the next Blade movie will probably be less about vampires and more about bad mythical creatures. So I'm excited about Marshala
Mm,
being Blade. I'm excited about that. But we'll have to just wait and see what Marvel wants to do.
I want Blade to be about vampires.
Well, we all want things, Mike. Sometimes you don't get what you want.
That's right. I will say I've been kind of not feeling good about doing a remake of Blade or a reboot of Blade, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I recently saw that Wesley Snipes has given my Mr. Ali
Marshala.
his blessing.
Yeah,
He
it's gonna be
said that
great.
He'll be great. So,
It's gonna be great. Yeah, I mean, I think Wesley Snipes, of course, is the quintessential Blade, but you gotta move on at some
one
point.
of the best Marvel movies of all time, even though it wasn't technically a Marvel movie.
Oh yeah, Blade and Blade 2 are classics. Yes, so good. And so again, we'll just hopefully it'll be great. I'm excited. I think it's gonna make a gazillion $billion. So who knows?
Yeah.
Whew, this took as long as I thought it would, and we didn't even cover all the stuff. But that is Eternals.
Yeah, it was great. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like if you had you know what? I just rewatched Shang-Chi at home. I cannot wait for Eternals to get and like Disney Plus, man, like being able to go see a movie at the theater and then a few months later watching it on Disney Plus, it's just so great. You know, I can't wait for Eternals to get on there. I'll watch it. I'll watch it 3 or 4 times.
You know, when I initially subscribed to Disney Plus, I was like, all right, I'm going to subscribe to this, watch The Mandalorian, and then I'm going to cancel it. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to cancel Disney Plus.
No, and you know why? Because listen, there is some news that we can abuse. That's so much news that we can abuse that we're going to do a special news that we can abuse episode. Mike.
That's right.
Are you ready? We're going to do that.
They released a megaton.
It's just so much news. It's so much. We'll get to that, but I think we're good. We're done here, right? We're okay.
We're eternal out.
Yeah, Mike. How can people find the podcast?
Well, you know what? You can help your friends find the podcast by hitting that share button right now and telling all your friends. Hit the share button and share it with your group chat. Say, hey, I really enjoyed this. They were talking about the Eternals. I just saw it in the theaters. It's great. This podcast is great. Take a listen to it. We're available everywhere you can find podcasts. If you can't find us with your favorite podcast app, let us know and we'll fix that. You can let us know on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Super Sideshow.
Yeah,
Where
I'm
else can they find us?
I'm at JSlacks on Twitter, JAYSLACKS on Twitter. You can also find on my favorite avenue, YouTube, which is a great place to listen to podcasts. And I don't know why I like it. It's just great. I love it.
I don't either.
YouTube. Yeah, you can also find us on Reddit. You can also find us. That's it, really. But everywhere you can find podcasts, Twitter, Reddit. Look us up. Find us. Super Sideshow. Share it with your friends. We got a bunch of great episodes coming up soon. We got Captain Marvel with a special guest star. We got Endgame with a special guest star. We've got Hawkeye coming out. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover all the cool news things coming out. Everything that has to do with Marvel.
Hawkeye. Oh, music to my ears.
Yeah, everything that you can possibly imagine about Marvel, we're going to cover it. Super holiday stuff. Can't wait. You know, pin us, favor us, send us some money. We'll take it. I don't know how you can do that. There you go.
Yeah, so next up is Captain Marvel.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, so watch that movie and then tune in and listen to the podcast with our special guest.
Exactly.
It's going to be great.
All right, Mike. See you next time, bud.
All right, see you then.